Today I'm putting a buzzer on my BETAFPV PAVO FEMTO because if you've ever flown in the woods or in tall grass, you know these little things can disappear into the leaves like a crashed UFO in the New Mexico dust. First thing you need to do is get some buzzers. I researched them on Amazon and put a link in the description. I tested them all with a 5-volt power supply and they weren't all the same. There were about 3 different pitches, so I numbered them for later use. I picked the highest pitch first because they're a little more piercing. First, we're going to need to remove the camera housing using the 4 screws and unplugging the cable. It will lift off the prop guard. Next, we'll detach the prop guard from the quadcopter so we can get to the flight controller. This uses the same flight controller as the PAVO 20 Pro, which I've already done, so most of the process is similar. Now we have the flight controller exposed. Remove that rubber bushing that's in between the buzzer pads so it doesn't get damaged when soldering. The positive is at the bottom and the negative is at the top, and they're marked. Check the labels to be sure in case they've changed it. I could have put the buzzer right behind the camera in this little groove, but it would be sticking above the level of the frame where it might catch on something. The other place was back next to the antenna, which can sit down flush with the frame, so that's where I'm going to put it. So you want to solder on the 2 wires and replace that rubber bushing. They're a little finicky. I use tweezers to squeeze it up in there. Make sure you route the wires over to the side shown here because you'll need the extra cable length. If it crosses to the other side, it won't be long enough. Replace the screws on the rubber grommets on the flight controller before attaching it to the frame so it will be easier to line up, and watch out for the wire antenna. My antenna was folded back on top of the flight controller. I learned in my PAVO 20 Pro that this position reduces the signal considerably, so route the antenna up through the frame and out the front underneath the camera. Again, before you start screwing those in, make sure the wires are routed properly and the buzzer is off to the side. Then you can screw on the prop guard with 4 screws. Plug the cable into the camera unit, then reattach the housing with the 4 screws and you're pretty much done. I used a piece of mounting tape to fasten the buzzer to the back of the camera housing. I didn't want to glue it because I might have to take it apart again sometime. It sits down flush and out of the way so it can't get snagged on something. Then you'll have to use Betaflight to activate the buzzer using a switch on your radio. This isn't going to be a Betaflight or a radio tutorial. There are plenty of those. But here's what you need. On the modes page you need to assign a switch to the buzzer. I'm using a 3-way switch. The second position is to flip it, and the third position turns the buzzer on. Be sure to push the save button on the bottom right before changing pages. Then on the configuration page you'll need to make sure the RX set is on, which is beeps when an aux channel is set for beep. That's the only thing I have turned on. Up at the top there's a beeper tone, but that doesn't affect this external beeper. It only affects the beeper made by buzzing the motors, which I don't hear at all on the Femto. On the PAVO 20 Pro it did make a noise, but it was too quiet to hear unless you're right next to it. Before leaving the configuration page, be sure to push the save and reboot button at the bottom right. And now you're ready to go.
Flip. Buzzer active. Flip. Buzzer off. Flip. Buzzer active. Flip. Buzzer off.
And that's about all I've got.